Hello, Crafty Crandall here, and today I wanted to make a video talking about artistic progress. Artistic progress is something that I think that every artist out there kind of has to evaluate for themselves. I think that everyone's progress looks different, and today I just kind of want to evaluate my own personal progress and just talk a little bit about like artistic struggles and kind of valuing yourself based on the perceived progress that you've made. Now, you see here I am painting a picture of Severus Snape. This is actually the 4th year in a row that I have painted a picture of Severus Snape in January of the year. So I started in 2018 and I have painted a painting every year since then of Severus Snape. So his face is rather familiar to me. It is probably the face that I've painted the most, if I'm being honest. And so, this shouldn't be as much of a struggle as it was. I will put up on the screen all of the previous pieces that I've done so that you can kind of see where I've come from in 2018 to today. And what I kind of want to evaluate is the fact that the piece from 2019 is by far, in my opinion, the best. And so I kind of want to talk about, why that is, 2 years later, that, I've seemed to have decreased in skill level and seem to have taken a step back, if you will. But honestly, it's one of those things that it's just hard to evaluate. You look at one of your old pieces and you love it and you think, wow, I'll never be that good again. But truly, you have to consider, everything that's brought you to that point. So the piece that I did in 2020 is probably my least favorite. And I think that a large reason why that is because I simply didn't put in the effort. Could the piece have been better? Yeah, probably. If I had taken it a little bit more seriously and put in the effort, I think that it would have been a lot better. But then, Sabrina, why is your piece from 2021 not the best? Because you're clearly putting in a bit of effort here in what you're painting. And my answer for that is I tried to paint this piece in gouache instead of in watercolor. Every other piece that I had done was in watercolor. And so this year, because I had been using gouache a lot, I tried to paint it in gouache. And I have never before really painted a portrait in gouache. So I believe that this is why the piece took so much effort to just get like a base skin tone. But that's, I guess, my point, is that there are underlying circumstances to each piece that you're going to make. And you can't evaluate your progress based on just the finished result. Progress is so much more than that. Your progress entails the familiarity with the medium that you're working in, the size of the piece. This piece is also significantly smaller than any of my previous pieces. And just your environment, your mindset, if you're hungry, where you're working. There are so many factors that can play into like the quality of a piece at the end, that to evaluate your progress strictly on that, I think, is foolish. And that's just kind of what I wanted to touch on today, is like markers of artistic progress and why we always beat ourselves down so much when it comes to our own art, and how we can overvalue other people's art and undervalue our own so frequently. It's just so common. And I'm 100% guilty of this as well. I see other artists making amazing pieces and I'm like, well, I've been doing art for just as long as they have. Why can't I make a piece like that? You never know anyone else's circumstances. So to compare yourself to anyone else is just ridiculous. And unfortunately, social media doesn't help that. Okay, so back to progress though. I think that a lot of markers of progress can kind of be overlooked. The complexity of the piece that you're attempting with relation to previous pieces that you've done is just a huge factor. I think that the medium that you're using, how familiar you are with it, the painting surface that you're using, or, you know, in the case of a different medium, the type of paper that you're using, the type of surface that you're using. Are you familiar with that? If your answer to any of these questions is no, then you are making so much progress just by attempting the piece, whether it turns out well or not, because the practice that gives you is really the indication of progress that you need. The number of pieces that you make is a great indicator of progress, because that tells you how much artistic mileage you've put in to becoming a better artist. I think that, you know, we all have pieces that we end up making that, you know, maybe when we least expect it, they come out amazing, and we're like, wow, you know what? I didn't know that this would come out this good. Those pieces are the ones that you really have to just sit back and appreciate. I think that those kind of are a culmination of a lot of progress all at once that come into a piece and just make it come together. Not every art piece that you make is going to be that, though, and I think that's something that we all struggle with, particularly with this piece. You know, the piece that I made in 2019 of Severus Snape was one of those pieces. It was something that I looked at again and again and said, wow, I'm really happy with this, and I'm impressed with how it came out. Well, again, not every piece is going to be like that, and so to have one of those pieces be this recurring painting that I'm doing, I think has really skewed my perception on the progress that I've made. And it's unfortunate that the great pieces that we make kind of do that to us. They almost warp our perception on our own art, because, you know, it's those outlying pieces that just, you know, either conflate your ego and make you think that you're better than you really are, or that, you know, make you feel like you've made more progress than you necessarily have. And so I guess my point is to really appreciate the pieces that you have that you really like, and stop getting so down on yourself over the pieces that you don't, because whether you know it or not, you are making progress, you are improving. It just might take a while to have a piece come about that really demonstrates that for you. They're very few and far between, if my own pieces are any indicator of that. But when you have one, appreciate it, but don't let it, you know, make every subsequent piece seem bad in your mind, because it's not. I would highly encourage you to go back and look at your old pieces. Pick out the one or two or however many pieces that you have that you are truly just over the moon happy with and impressed with out of your own body of work, and evaluate what makes you think that those are so good. Write down the elements of them that you really like. Write down how you remember feeling that day. Write down as much of your environment as you can, and just recall all of the things that went into that piece, because that might help you evaluate how you want to approach, you know, either like bigger finished pieces in the future, or even approach your practice. What worked really well in that piece? What didn't work well in that piece? What do you still see that you could improve on? Because I guarantee you that with every piece that you look at, there are not only the good things, but also the things that you think to yourself, man, if only I had done that a little bit better. Going back again to my painting from 2019, when I look at that, I can see all of the flaws. Severus Snape's nose in that piece is just not how his nose actually looks. Alan Rickman's nose does not look like that. And it drives me nuts that the rest of the piece was so good, but his nose is just off. While in this piece that I'm currently painting, although you can't currently see how the nose is going to turn out, I think I did a much better job of capturing the nose in this piece. And so that to me would be a marker of progress, that I have improved in the area of either facial features or noses in particular. I think that it would require a little bit more than just this one piece to really evaluate that progress. But at the same time, I can definitely see that there is some improvement being made, regardless of whether this piece in itself looks better to me than the 2019 piece. So I encourage you to go back and look for those small wins. Look for the areas of improvement, regardless of the holistic pieces that maybe look better than other holistic pieces, and just kind of write everything down. Writing things down can be a really great way to evaluate yourself and really hold yourself accountable for that evaluation. If you just think about it in your head, then you're not really holding yourself to that. You're not writing it down such that you can reflect upon it later. If your mind is anything like mine, you will probably forget about it within, an hour or two once you've started reading or cleaning or what have you. So I encourage you to write it down. Maybe even make some art goals for yourself this year to improve on the things that you want to improve on, and to really appreciate the things that come out good in your opinion. I think that we as artists can get really, really hard on ourselves, and it can just be really helpful to build that mindfulness into your artistic progress. Build making pieces that you don't like, but reflect on those pieces and figure out what worked well into your progress. I think that doing that exercise and just, being really evaluative of your own work can be so helpful when it comes to improving and to marking progress. I hope that these ramblings are making sense. I don't know if I've made my point particularly clear, and for that I apologize, but I just kind of wanted to take a moment while this painting is playing to reflect on progress because it can be a double-edged sword, and I think that a lot of artists really struggle, including myself, to, appreciate the progress that they've made. And it truly is, it's a struggle. You know what else is a struggle though? How hard I worked on the skin on this painting. Truly, this was such a challenge, and it shouldn't have been. It was a struggle to mix the paint in the beginning. I even cut out like a minute of paint mixing in the very beginning before I even laid down a base tone. I have obviously included all of the rest of my struggles with paint mixing, and I just want to say, everyone has struggles. Everyone struggles to really complete something. In this case, it was a subject that I was super familiar with, and I think that the paint is just what was unfamiliar to me. I didn't know the colors that I had. I didn't know how to mix them properly. This might also be a lack in color theory. I think that a goal of mine for this year is going to have to be understanding color much better. Now, whether that means looking it up online, getting a book on just color theory, creating several mixing documents for myself with my own paint to reference how my paint specifically mixes, I think would also be a really useful exercise. I might even make a video about it, just not even to teach other people how to do it, because frankly, I don't have the knowledge to teach anything to do with painting. But just so that you guys can see the general artistic struggles. I find that on YouTube, we just don't get enough of the realistic artistic process. That said, there are channels that really show their struggles and show when they create something that they're not that proud of. One person in particular that I can think of is Arlie Bean. She will always say when something didn't work out or what didn't work out in her opinion, or she's just a great reference for that sort of content. But for the most part, the artistic content that I personally consume just doesn't have as much of the fails and the the steps that it takes to get there, as opposed to already being an amazing artist. So I'm hoping that that's what my channel can kind of provide for you, if that's what you're looking for. It's just a realistic account on improving in your art and the steps that I personally am taking to get there, so that maybe you can follow along and hopefully improve your own art along the way as well. So with that said, at this point in the painting, I think that I finally, mind you, figured out the colors that I wanted. I finally found a tone for the shadows that actually worked for me, and so I finally added a bit more contrast to this piece. Now, I think that it still could have used a little bit more contrast, mind you, but in the end, I am pleased with how it came out for being a smaller piece. I think next year what I'm going to do is try to do a larger scale portrait of Severus Snape, back to like the original size of my other 3 paintings with gouache, so that I can really see where I'm at with portraiture with gouache. So thank you all for watching. I do really appreciate your time. Please let me know if you struggle with comparing yourself or artistic progress or anything of the sort down below in the comments. Please feel free to like this video if you liked it. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel if any of those topics interest you. If you want to come along on my artistic journey and my improvement goals, please subscribe to this channel, and I would love to have you back here. Thank you guys again. Have a great day. Bye.